Going to call back into order the regular meeting for the Albany Unified School District for Tuesday, April 4th, 2017. May we have a roll call, please?
Student Board Member Greensfelder. Present. Student Board Member Yoon.
Present.
Board Member Tutane. Present. Board Member Clark.
Here.
Board Member Blanchard.
Here.
Vice President Stapleton Gray.
Here.
President Black.
Here. For those who wish to participate, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We will now have a reading of the AUSD mission and vision statement. We read this at every board meeting because we try to live up to this, we believe in it, and it is quite relevant to what's been going on recently.
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Thank you. The board took no action in closed session. Does anyone have any changes to request to the agenda? Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion. That's the motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Tonight we have a spotlight on Albany's Children's Center.
Thank you, President Black, trustees, student board members, and community. It's always nice when we can do our annual spotlight on the Albany Children's Center. And we have with us today Ms. Anna Mansker, who is our director. And I know she's got some staff here because I see purple shirts in the audience. Ms. Mansker.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Mansker, and I am the director for Albany Children's Center. I've been in this position for a little over 6 months, and I tell everyone I have the best job ever. I'm really excited to be here with all of you tonight to share some of my joy with all of you. We put together a PowerPoint, and it's a little late for our students to come and join us, so they will perform for all of us at the end of the PowerPoint. All right, so there we are, Albany Children's Center. We have preschool, SDC preschool, and transitional kindergarten classrooms located on Jackson Street at Albany Children's Center. We also manage before and after school programs at all 3 of the elementary schools in Albany. There's just some numbers for you. We've got about 76 preschool students, 44 transitional kindergarten kids, 148 children participate in the before and after school programs at Cedars and Maples at Ocean View Elementary. We have 35 children within the Chinese school at Ocean View, 48 children at Cornell's Chinese school program, and 148 students attend Tupelo at Marin Elementary. We work very hard at Albany Children's Center to align our vision and mission statement with the districts at large. We believe deeply that Albany's youngest students really thrive in a very culturally responsive, developmentally appropriate, play-based learning center. And we've found that Dr. Seuss has done a magnificent job of articulating this in a very kid-friendly way. He tells us that you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction that you choose. And our children at Albany Children's Center, they come to us very young. They are 3 years old, many of them, and they stay with us until they're 5, sometimes 6. And we really believe strongly in giving them a strong foundation for learning so that they can grow and develop into productive citizens and learners. All right, the research is out there. Play is the work of the young child. And we feel very strongly about that at the Children's Center, that children's play unlocks their creativity and their imagination. It develops reading, thinking, problem solving, and motor skills. It provides the base of foundation for which all learning can be built upon. Even the great Albert Einstein tells us that play is the highest form of research. And here are some photographs of some of our preschool and transitional kindergarten children playing, working, learning at our Children's Center, both inside and in the outside classrooms, with peers and on their own. The other thing that research tells all of us in early childhood is that teaching social emotional learning is equally as important to teaching the academics. That is the basis for which all other learning takes place. Students develop empathy through learning social emotional learning. They acquire self-regulation, they learn to make good decisions, they establish friendships, and they handle challenges effectively. We work very hard to get down on their eye level and to work with them to solve through these problems. All right, gardening and nutrition and healthy lifestyle is a big part of the learning that takes place at the Children's Center. We have an active gardens, and many of our beds hold vegetables and herbs. We are beginning a butterfly garden, which we will start this spring. We have some pictures of children working to get ready for that. We also believe strongly in integrated learning across the curriculum. So children will participate in discussions around gardening, they'll do art projects, they'll do some graphing and read books about butterflies and butterfly gardens as they work to create the butterfly garden at the school site. Okay. We at the Albany Children's Center are very lucky to have an extremely diverse group of staff members and a diverse group of students as well. Teaching and celebrating diversity is very important for us at the Children's Center, and given the current situation that we are faced with as a community, we took time to think about what would be a developmentally appropriate way to respond and to help the children sort of work through and process what's going on around us. All of the preschool and TK children have participated in developmentally appropriate lessons and activities that both celebrate diversity and affirm unity. And here are some photographs of some of the work that has taken place. I think it's also important to note that this is something that's important to all of us. It's work that we do every day, every year. But we did take some extra time to focus on it given the current situation. All right, and last Friday, the school came together to do a school-wide performance. We sang "The World is a Rainbow." I'm sorry, one moment. truly no one says it better than the young children, right? We know how important it is to celebrate unity, or celebrate diversity, to stand, to work, to play, and to learn in unity with one another. And hopefully, the preschool and transitional kindergarten children can leave us with a positive, peaceful, and proactive statement for all of us, that truly the world is a wonderful and beautiful place when we appreciate each other for our own unique and individual celebrations. Thank you.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Do we have any comments or questions from Ms. Mansker? Charlie?
Well, just to say thank you so much, Anna, for the work that you and the Children's Center staff are doing. It's great to know that all those students are in such good hands, and I really enjoyed seeing the 2028 Albany High School Choir.
Anna, on your table, so I think you listed SDC as one of your lines. Can you explain what that is?
The special day class, right? So we work to have some inclusion opportunities for our special education preschool children to enter into play with the general education preschool students. They also have their own classroom, right? So it's a special education preschool room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you very much. That was great. Okay, next up, we have the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of routine items that are generally taken care of in a single vote, but anyone on the board can ask questions on or even pull from the agenda for a separate vote items on the consent calendar. Tonight we have the SARCs on the consent calendar, the student accountability report cards. They don't normally go on consent, but they were on the agenda last time when we did not have time to discuss them. So if you have any questions that you want answered on the student accountability report cards, now is the time to bring them up. Anyone?
I wanted an explanation in that the SARCs all have a table of salary data and comparisons, and I wanted to ask the district to come in and explain that.
Please.
Yeah, speak right into the microphone.
Every one of the, there we go. Every one of the SARCs has a table of salary comparison data, and I wanted to ask administration to please comment on how that table is made and where those numbers come from.
Thank you. The table is generated from the state data. They have data. So the chart shows salary data for various positions throughout the district, and it also shows a comparison to similar sized school districts across the state. And so it's compared with not only school districts of similar size in the Bay Area, but also in school districts up north to Modoc County and all the way down south to San Diego.
Yeah, but within the district, when we're looking at the comparison of, say, teacher salaries to administrative salaries, the benefit packages are constructed somewhat differently, so it's not easy to compare the numbers. Can you explain that just a bit?
Sure. So for comparison data, the state, let's see. So compensation could be very complex and different within a school district, but also different within various school districts across the state. And so the state does not have the data that will easily compare total compensation data. And so what they've just focused on is the salary data. For Albany, benefits are paid for by the school district in addition to salary for most staff. For administrators, it was folded into the salary back in 2006.
Other questions? Kim?
Yeah, okay, so I just want to, so one of the things I heard is that comparison is for any similar size, it's not a Bay Area comparison, for one thing.
Correct, it is across
Okay.
the state.
Okay, so any district that happened to have around 3,000 to 4,000 students, I expect something like
Correct.
that. Okay. Okay, I also I pulled the data from each of the individual reports on physical fitness. That's one of the assessments that's listed. And I just wanted to make a statement that our numbers went from 91% of the students at Ocean View meeting 5 or 6 of the fitness standards. Cornell and Marin both were in the 70s. The high school was at 65, but AMS, unfortunately, it was only at 45% of the children met 5 or 6 standards. And of course, we don't know where that comes from. Maybe they're tested more rigorously when they get into the middle school. But I am interested in the physical fitness of our children, and I wonder if we can aim to look into that a little bit.
Staff can definitely get back to you on that question about middle school percentage of physical fitness test data.
Thank you.
Anything else on the consent? Anyone in the audience?
One last thing. I think that in all of the subgroups that are pulled out when we're looking at the individual schools and their test results, I believe that a student might belong to 2 of those groups. Like a student might belong in the English learner group as well as one of the ethnic subgroups that listed. So I just think it's important when you're looking at those numbers to realize that you're looking at duplicated results. So for anybody who's studying those subgroup analysis, that's important to realize.
Thanks. We have a motion on the consent calendar.
I move the consent calendar.
You have a second? Second. All in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Student board member report.
On Thursday and Friday of last week, freshmen participated in the annual debates and respectfully argued on topics ranging from the death penalty to nuclear power. This being the culmination of several months of research, speechwriting, and practice for their respective topics.
On March 31st and April 1st, the AMS and AHS band orchestras participated in CMEA, the annual music competition. Our school musical groups performed various pieces and site read a piece and received high ratings.
On March 29th, the AMS community held a dialogue discussing the recent events and gathered input and ways to move forward.
On Thursday, some students participated in a sit-in to demonstrate the solidarity and the intolerance that Albany High School students hold for racist or any other form of hate speech. However, the events that followed horrified and disgusted many students. The intentions of the sit-in lost its well-intentioned ability to effect change following the breakout of chaos. The students would like to make clear that such actions are counterintuitive to the original intentions of the sit-in and do not represent the beliefs of any majority student opinion. In addition, a majority of students are disappointed by the action taken by those students that chose to participate in the skirmish, as some stated, that it demonstrated their willingness to descend to the same level as those the protest was aimed to target. Furthermore, many students indicated their disappointment in the action they saw in taking steps to ensure the safety of those students that are suspected of participating in the racist account. Many suggested points of where the administration could have taken steps to ensure the safety of all students, and might have curbed the violence that erupted late Thursday afternoon.
In light of all the tensions and events of the past week, the Albany High Black Student Union organized a unity rally to bring the community back together and ease the sentiments at school on Friday. Many expressed a feeling of the beginning of healing.
Thank you. Questions for the students? Charlie?
I have a comment, and again, it's a thank you. Thank you to both Julia and Alfred. Besides your report tonight, you also sent us a letter telling us more about what students were talking about and doing. And, well, first I wanted to say thank you to all the students for the depth of thought and concern, the care with which they addressed all the issues that you summarized for us. And then I really wanted to thank you, Alfred, for conveying in writing and in such a crystal clear way all of that complex discussion. So thank you so much.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience want to question or comment? Okay. Thank you for that. Board and Superintendent report.
Thank you, President Black. The past few weeks have been turbulent, emotional time for our students, our staff, our parents, and our community. Albany is facing deep-seated racism, intolerance, anti-Semitism, and hurtful behavior. At the last board meeting, I said that I would reach out to the community and that I would have a plan so that this community has a way to provide their input and their suggestions so that we can come to a place where we can create a safe and welcoming school for all students. So I want to let everybody know that we are going to begin community conversations. I know Albany Middle School has already begun that. I want to ensure that all voices are heard and considered in this process. Our goal is to identify the gaps in our policies and our programs, our practices, and we're going to have to address these because we need to make sure that our overarching goal can and will be met. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a series of community conversations, and we are going to start with the task force because all means all. The information gathering that we want has to include all interested stakeholders, including staff and students and parents and community groups and leaders and members. We are going to create a task force made up of these different groups, a diverse group of stakeholders, where they will collaborate on specific plan to engage our community. And this is going to ensure inclusion and transparency. The task force, after we complete the community conversations, and there will be many, the task force will review all input and make recommendations for action. And these actions will reflect the community's input and their priorities. To ensure transparency and accessibility, this task force will maintain communication throughout the entire process and report an action plan to all stakeholders so they can engage in the process. And we will be posting regular updates. So the first step is to create this task force. It will be diverse. It will have representatives from stakeholder groups, and the stakeholder groups can determine who will represent them on the task force. And Assistant Superintendent Peter Parenti and I will be working on this. We've already had several groups reach out to us. We will be contacting them. And so I want to say to this community, if you are interested, you are part of a group that is interested in being on the task force, please let Mr. Parenti and I know. And I want to say to this community, I am very sorry. I am your superintendent, and it is my job. And I said that my call to action was to make sure that this never happens again. And the way that we can do this together is for me to get input from you. There's a lot of resources that people have been emailing me and support that people are willing to give. And I can't do this alone. We have to do this together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to comment briefly. I've been around through all of this. I was on campus during the student sit-in. I was not outside and didn't see what transpired outside. I saw some of what happened on the inside leading up to that. I was here or at the high school on Friday for a beautiful rally that the Black Student Union held, which was looking forward and towards tolerance and healing, and it was very beautiful to see that. I know that a lot of you are angry and frustrated, and I know that there's a perception that nothing much is happening. I can tell you, I've been at the district office many times over the last couple of weeks. I've been on the phone with the superintendent many times a day. The entire administrative staff of this district has been occupied almost 100% of their time working on this issue, and there are a lot of other things that need to get done to keep the district running. So this has been very disruptive to everyone, and it's very important that we get back to teaching the kids as well as we can. So it's in the district's interest to make sure that this is handled well and thoroughly, and that everybody feels safe and everyone can come back to school and learn, because that is our mission. So I just wanted you to know that the district is working on this very hard, but a lot of what's being done cannot be made public. We absolutely cannot reveal any information about discipline because these are minors. We can't tell you what has been done. We can't tell you what we are going to do. But when discipline gets past suspensions and on to things like expulsions, it is very, very important that a thorough investigation be made. Two things: we don't want anybody to be even accused, let alone expelled, for something they did not do. And secondly, if it's something that they did do and the expulsion is not handled carefully and thoroughly, it'll be overturned on appeal. And if the students are deserving of that kind of discipline, we don't want that to happen either. So we need to proceed as carefully and thoroughly as we can, and that does take time. So with that understood, I'll pass it on to other board members if you have things to say.
So the previous board meeting had an amazingly large turnout, and we heard an awful lot in session, and then I've heard next to nothing actually in form of phone calls or emails. The board is here. All of us are here, so don't just burden Paul then. I absolutely would love to hear from anyone who has a concern, and especially if anyone has a question. Okay, I followed all the press. The press, by and large, is horrible. The broadcast television stations. Some of the venerable print reporters are doing a great job, but the TV newscasts, I don't think I've watched a TV newscast that didn't have at least one error in it, conflating this with that, claiming this about it, and I'm afraid that we're being too shy and not saying enough about known and knowable facts, and it's all going out there in the form of rumor or folks knowing things they don't actually know. I did want to also make a comment with two quotes to kind of frame this, and I waited till now, and rather than sort of put a damper on Ms. Mansker's presentation. The first was a quote from South Pacific, the song, "You've Got to Be Carefully Taught." None of those kids we're seeing there are bigots. None of those kids hate the kid next to them. None of them. They're taught that. Some people are taught to be that way. And so we're starting with very beautiful, clean slates, and we've got to make sure that they stay that beautiful the rest of their lives. The other quote was from Mark Twain, who said, "I've never let my schooling interfere with my education." we are not the only source of the education of our kids. And in some cases, I think we're fighting really darn hard against other things educating our kids. We have an administration in Washington that would like them to think first and foremost about themselves if they're have, and not about others if they're have-nots. So we are not, we have an enormous challenge, but I have been impressed by what I've seen this past week or over the past years as a parent with a kid in the district. It's hard. There are lots of forces out there that would like to teach our kids otherwise. We haven't got all the resources we'd like. There's far fewer adults in those kids' lives in those schools that I'd love to see, but we have public school education budget. I will try to do what I can do to be a positive influence to the lives of those kids, and I'm sure all of you will too. So let's keep at it.
Charlie?
Well, I just had one short comment, and that is that last meeting, it was important for us to hear what people had to say, and I really appreciated that we had the time, and we took the time to hear people. The downside of that, of course, was we didn't actually get to the business on our agenda last time, but that's okay. We'll get to it eventually. What I wanted to note about tonight is that may happen again tonight, and I will be happy to hear what people have to say. If that's the best use of our time tonight, I'm happy to use our time that way. We have some items on the agenda that I am very eager to get to whenever we get to them. We have new course proposals for an ethnic studies class, for an international cuisine class, and we have discussion of a board policy on protection for undocumented students. I think all of those are very important, and if we don't get to them tonight, I know we will eventually. But I just wanted to point those out, that those are on our agenda. When we get to them, we get to them.
Anyone else?
I guess I just want to say that I have spent a lot of time at Albany High School this past week and at the middle school, and I know how many people are working on these issues. Parents, the students have thought long and hard about these issues. The teachers, the staff. I've seen effort on all sides, and I've seen a lot of good faith, a lot of goodwill, and I do think that we can come out of this stronger. Thank all of you for your efforts.
Julia?
I just want to kind of reiterate my thanks for all of you who I saw at the last board meeting, because I think that follow through with an issue as big as this one is so tremendously important. And I know the district is working to follow through, but the fact that all of you parents are here, and I know I saw a couple of students walk through, the fact that you're here again, the fact that you're continuously advocating for what you know is right is incredible. And thank you so much for taking the time. And additionally, I just want to point out, I know that last week there were some students who tried to come back, and because of the actions of very few, they were unable to. And so I just want to point out that this is a multi-sided issue, and we should view this as a multi-sided issue and take all of the perspectives into account. And I know that we're going to be hearing from multiple differing perspectives tonight, and I know this is an incredibly respectful crowd, and I just want to say thank you in advance for all the respect you're going to give to everyone who speaks tonight, even if what they're saying you might disagree with. So thank you for being so respectful, thank you for following through, and thank you for showing up.
Thanks, Julia. Okay, so next up is what many of you are here for, which is persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. As Charlie pointed out, there's an ethnic studies course that is on the agenda. The international cuisine course has a large cultural component to it. If you want to talk about courses that we should be teaching, please save your comments for the agenda item. that's on that, then we can have a conversation on it. For items not on the agenda, we can only sit and listen. That's the Brown Act. We can't violate that. Last time, people were very worked up, and we let people talk as long as they wanted. We were here for a very long time and actually got no board business done. I'm going to try to enforce a 3-minute limit tonight so that as many people as possible can talk, and we will still have a chance to get to these other board items, which are of interest, I think, to the general public. So with that said, please come up, be respectful of other people, and let us know what you've come here to say.
Good evening. My name is Don Driscoll. I'm sorry.
These mics aren't very good. You have to talk right in. That one will come off the stand if you like.
Oh, okay. I found posts to the Instagram site deeply offensive, and I think pretty much every member of the community found some of those posts deeply offensive, and I want to convey... Okay, here I go. I'll start over again. I found the posts to the Instagram site deeply offensive, as I'm sure everybody here did. I think I need to express my deepest sympathy for everybody whose picture was on that site. It's not acceptable to do that to students. I've heard talk tonight of transparency, tolerance, and protecting the identity of minors. I also heard someone say that we're intolerant of races. And I certainly agree that we should speak strongly against racism, but in a context in which one of the students who followed the Instagram account had his nose broken, I think we have to be careful about talking about intolerance. There are many forms of intolerance. That incident happened after students were called in for restorative justice. Those students whose privacy, according to the board, should be protected, were then forced into what people called a perp walk in front of other students, in which they were jeered. Their privacy was not protected, and it had not been protected up to that point. There was a rap song at a school-sponsored event where the initials of the students were stated. Through a wide variety of sources, people gave out the information about these individuals. Now, at the time of that perp walk, the students who were there for restorative justice and who had spent a long time being sworn at by students expressing their views, well, no adult intervened and said, let's try to get some greater understanding. Let's not just assume that every one of these kids is the product of deep-seated racism. Let's try to understand, let's try to reach common ground. That didn't happen. Instead, there was swearing at the students, followed by a perp walk. The students were then very concerned with their safety. Meanwhile, there was a huge crowd of students that some of the students in that crowd have described as a mob, gathered with 2 narrow lanes that people could exit from. They were repeatedly told by school and administration officials that they would get a walk to shame these people, that the students would have to come out from their so-called restorative justice and walk through these narrow corridors while the students jeered at them. This is not restorative justice. It's not protecting the identity of students. It's gross mismanagement of a crisis. It should never have happened. The school administration should have thought this out better. There's much, much more I could say. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hi, my name is Teresa Munoz. I just have a quick comment to make. I'm a little surprised at how everyone is outraged about what happened, when reality is that this happens every day to many people. And we live in a place where... okay, sorry. So I was just saying, this happens every day to people, to minority groups, to women, and maybe it was a good, well, not a good way, but an eye-opening, so that our children can be exposed to what the reality of the world is. And now we have to teach them how to manage and how to deal with racism. I understand why we're all so, again, outraged. But this happens every day. Every day. People are killed every day, And I think we really have to kind of open up our views so that we can take in that reality and figure out how we're going to be global citizens and also how to be good citizens here in Albany.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Max Weintraub. I am a parent of a student who will be starting in Albany Unified School District shortly. And a couple of points. First, I read the statement today that was posted online regarding student discipline in response to the racist Instagram accounts. Closer? Wow, I am usually really loud. Okay. I read the statement posted today online regarding student discipline in response to the racist Instagram posts. And you state that the lack of detail about disciplinary follow-up should not be taken to mean that you're not taking action. And I do want to believe that, but I am concerned. And I think that, as you've determined you can't publicly punish racist and sexist acts among minors, please consider the following thoughts. I'm glad, Superintendent Williams, I'm glad that you spoke about the community conversations that will be taking place. And as this was a racist and sexist incident predominantly targeting African American girls, I would hope that as you start thinking about what the different groups are that would participate in those community conversations, that somehow these girls aren't lost in that. I mean, one of the challenges we have in our community is that we are, as was mentioned, this is a relatively privileged community economically. There's some racial diversity, but in certain respects in other respects there's not much. The challenges that African American students face in the school district are significant. And so I just wouldn't want that to get swamped out by the fact that that's a relatively small population, but one that in this particular incident that is triggering all of this was directly harmed. Then for Board President Black, I have to say I disagree to some extent with your comments. This is not an either or. I really do believe that this is, as I know you recognize, this is a great teaching moment for the students. How we address it and how we figure out how to incorporate it going forward, I think, will be a great challenge. You brought up the ethnic studies. I'll come back and say this again later, but for example, the ethnic studies curriculum, which is a fairly good curriculum, but the plurality of the authors for the curriculum are white men. And this is an opportunity for us to think about, all right, that's one particular class where there is an opportunity to really reach out more broadly, and it starts in that direction, but maybe there are opportunities to continue to expand that, particularly in response to what's taken place recently. And I lost my last comment. But thank you all for paying attention to this, for being responsive and allowing us to give our feedback. The girls affected by this shouldn't have had to face this. And lessons, it's a great opportunity for lessons to be learned by the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello? Okay, I'm just going to read because I'm very nervous standing up here. Many of you know me. I'm Kirsten Puroth, have 4 children, 3 in the schools right now and 1 who graduated last year. I am neighbor to some of you, friend to many, and an active participant in the school. And I am Albany too. And I speak here today on behalf of my family. I am standing here because my son was a follower on the Instagram account. The boy that set up the account was his friend who invited him to join when no postings were on the account. As his friend started to post pictures that targeted the girls, my son asked his friend to take it down, and he refused. My son did not create any of the content. He did not comment. He did not like any of the posts in question. And once he'd made the move to ask his friend to stop the site and was refused, he no longer looked at what was being posted. He's not even aware of the posts that are being discussed. The punishment he received, along with all the followers of the account, was a maximum 5-day suspension, irrespective of their involvement. We were told they were all complicit. First, I want to address the girls and families of the girls targeted in this account. No words can describe how devastated I am that your beautiful girls had to endure this. They are 16. They should be thinking about prom and prom dresses and not questioning the very foundation of their being. And I am so sorry for what has happened. And I will work with your families in any way I can to make sure that this will not happen again in this town. But we cannot put back the clock. And I want to acknowledge the scars that have been left on your girls and their families and all involved. Second, I want to say that I have been so utterly disappointed in how the school and the district has dealt with this situation. Their decisions made about how to address those involved with the account have created a climate in the school and in our town that can only be described as intimidating and hostile, one of the 3 official reasons given for my son's suspension. I fully supported a restorative justice approach. However, the actions that followed the intervention of SEEDS, the restorative justice organization selected by the school, were devastating. The boys were labeled harmers, and they voluntarily attended the SEEDS program, where the administration, looking on, marched them in front of the whole school, and they were shamed. Students were allowed to swear at them, threaten them, videotape and photograph them, and shout obscenities at them. The situation got worse when SEEDS had finished their intervention. I was fortunate enough to arrive early and to get my son away from the school before complete anarchy occurred and the students took control. For a number of hours, the students rampaged, bullied, and hurt other students. Thank you. Parents and 1 grandmother, as well as a number of boys from the SEED session, were locked in a small room for a substantial time. 1 boy had his nose broken. Parent trying to leave in her car with some other boys was prevented and the car shaken and attacked. Helicopters circled the school. And the district followed this by sending out a message to all that students behave respectfully and that all was well at the school, and I beg to differ. So now, the boys who have been suspended have completed their 5-day suspension, but they've not returned to school. Today, we did receive support from my son's counsellor and the administration in helping him with his transition back to school, and he will return. He wants to return, and he is not scared. Some parents, however, have been warned by people in the community, one even while shopping at Trader Joe's, that it's not safe for these children to return to school. And they are fearful, and their boys are fearful, and I do not know if some of them will ever feel ready to return. So my question to the board are this: what steps are you, the school, and the school board taking to ensure safe return of all students? At the middle school, normal classes were postponed and teachers were fully informed of what was happening, and classes were stopped and the situation was addressed. This was not happening at the high school. There was an assembly, but many of my son's teachers didn't know what happened until he actually sent them a letter explaining this. I want to know what the school and the district will be doing in helping all the students, the girls, those who followed the account, and now those who have raged against the followers. What process will be used to fully address this? How will students learn to understand, possibly forgive, hopefully heal, and ultimately resume their lives as a high school student? I know I've gone over my time, but if I could just take 1 minute. I wanted to end by reading a part of my son's letter that he gave to all the girls involved, to their families. He's given it to the teachers, and he just wants it to go to the community, and I will read a small bit of it. I am sorry. I am sorry to all of the girls who were targeted. I am sorry to all of your families, and I am sorry to all of the community. I should have stood up to this in a stronger way than I did. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to realize how important it was that this content needed to be reported. I didn't understand how it would make the girls feel because I have lived my whole life as a white male, and I've never experienced what it's like to be a minority. It has become clear to me the damage this can do, and I never thought it would have to be so severe. I understand now. I know how to handle it and how it makes the victims feel. I knew about this account, and I failed to take proper action against it. And to the girls that were on the account, I'm sorry for betraying your trust and standing by when I was needed most. By seeing how this has affected the girls and hearing them at the meeting, I've realized I have to stand up for this, no matter the circumstances or repercussions. A week ago, moving forward from this situation seemed hopeless, and I thought we would have to move and leave Albany. But following an amazing meeting with parents on Sundays from both parties, I have hope that as a community we can come together to form strategies to educate and inform so that no other student will have to endure what has happened in Albany these last 2 weeks. Thank you.
My name is Linda Bishop, and I wrote my comments as well. My name is Linda Bishop. I'm the mother of 2 students at high school. My eldest son was a bystander and a follower of the Instagram account. I'm coming forward to share with you how we found ourselves in this place. He followed the account because it belonged to a friend who invited him. He did not go looking for racist content. The photos on the account included lots of images, from the mundane to extremely hurtful, derogatory, and racist. The hurtful, derogatory, and racist imagery do not reflect our family values. My son made a mistake in following this account and not realizing the gravity and severity of what he was involved in. He was irresponsible about what he clicked on and what he commented on, and we're very sorry for the pain his involvement has caused the people directly targeted and the community at large. He made a very big mistake, and he did not grasp the depth of what he was involved in. He does care about the people that were hurt, and as a follower, he did tell his friend. He posted a comment and asked to delete one of the hurtful racist posts. But in response, my son became a target of a racist epithet. There was at least one insulting image of my son as well, posted on the account. But the school never told me about this. I had to go in and ask for it. Why did he continue to follow this account? He considered them his friends, and I think he tried to deal with it the best that he could. I think that he was desensitized, and I think he tried to minimize it and tolerate it. Our son made a big mistake by not speaking out and not standing up for what we believe in, and we're truly sorry for that. These are not our family values. We do not support racism. We are so grateful to friends and family members and communities who are willing to see us as more than this one association. We are especially grateful to the families of the girls who have been hurt and are showing such grace in their willingness to meet with us and to work with us and help our children and our community grow from this experience. We are more than this, and we can do better than this, and we can be more responsible with our actions and our words. And I believe that together we can help our school and our community recover from this.
Thank you for that. Before we have the next speaker, the superintendent is going to share what she can about the reentry plan.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Peter Parenti has been working with the site administration for the past few days to create a reentry plan for students returning to class. This includes, and Mr. Parenti, you can help me if you will, because you were actually there, making sure that our counselors, mental health team is available. Mr. Anderson will be speaking with each of the families and their students when they return. We have hired security to be on the floors throughout the day. We are making sure that the teachers who have the students who are returning know that they are returning, that there's a safe room for students with counselor available if needed. Mr. Premier, if you want to add some more to that, I've got some of the list. Okay.
I met with site administrators and family today, and we focused on the needs of both sides, the students on both sides of the situation. We have teachers informed, the teachers of the students who are returning, not the entire staff, about the particulars, although we're going to be meeting with the staff tomorrow afternoon. We have the district's hired, as Superintendent said, an outside security service to add a presence on the school grounds on each of the floors. These will not be uniformed. These will not be armed security guards. These are security services that we have experience working with before for things like dances and football games, and they're going to be an additional presence on every floor so that they're in communication directly with the administration. They'll wear staff badges and be dressed in plain clothes. Teachers are going to be asked to stand at their classroom doors during passing periods to observe for any unusual behavior. Any students, either student groups, either those who were part of the offense or those who were victims, are going to each have their own locations that they can turn to when they need help, as well as mental health staff and counseling staff. Thank you.
And I believe Mr. Anderson spoke with the department chairs today as well.
Thank you. Okay, so this is important. We want to hear all of this, but we do have business to attend to as well. Please, I count about 15 people standing up now. I want you all to speak. Anyone else, please send us an email, come to the next board meeting, come on the 25th. We just can't go on all evening. Get up, please, get up and get in line.
No, it's not just about me.
Well, I'm sorry, please.
Hi, my name is Brian Bishop. My wife Linda and I have lived in Albany now for about 20 years. We have two sons at the high school. So a concerned parent reaches out to another concerned parent, a concerned involved mother talks to another concerned involved mother, and that gesture results in a meeting this past Sunday. A meeting that involved parents of the affected girls, involved parents of the followers, bystanders, and the father of the originator of the Instagram account. So I don't really need to tell you it was a pretty powerful meeting, a very powerful meeting. There were a lot of tears shed. It was a fantastic discussion. It was very impactful. Touched a lot of us. So we talked about a lot of things. One of the things that we talked about was to write a message to Albany Unified, but also to members of the community, and to share it, and to tell people what we want to do and talk about our values. So we're going to read that letter as a group today. We're not all going to take up 3 minutes each, but we'll take more than 3 minutes in sum.
Fine, thank you.
Dear Albany community, many of the parents of the children directly involved in the Albany High School Instagram incident met on Sunday, April 2nd, to discuss what happened and determine how to move forward. Specifically included were the parents of kids that were involved in starting and following the account, along with some of the parents of the students directly targeted by the account.
All of the parents took turns to very sincerely share their most heartfelt feelings about this terrible incident. We want the Albany community to know that We are unified in our goal of capitalizing on this teachable moment by first healing and educating our children, and secondly, committing to long-term solutions that will prevent such incidents in the future.
As such, our visions and mission is to show and demand that Albany Unified School District curriculum, staff, and leadership promote inclusion and a breadth of cultural education that empowers our kids, our future leaders of the community, to fulfill the vision where we see for Albany and the world at large.
We are united in this process to help our children heal, learn, and emerge as strong, confident young adults who are sensitive and supportive of diversity everywhere. So far, our present group has committed to continuing to meet together, to talking with our children about atonement and forgiveness, and to communicating with the community about our progress.
We want the community to know that our families are working to heal together. This will take time, and from where the process is today, day one, we are asking a lot of our children. They are just beginning to know about the adult realities of the world. And as the adult influences in their lives, we must also be committed to growth and learning in this journey toward true unity, true community, true communication, and true love. We trust that you too will join us on this journey. Sincerely, the Albany High parents for diversity and inclusion. We'd like to submit this document here for the record,
Please.
So that it be memorialized in this meeting.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
My name is Ann Daly Mallard, and this is Alexandra Campbell Jones. And first of all, I wanted to kind of clear some things up. It seemed like some of the stuff that's going around about this meeting and what happened and why and all that kind of stuff. First of all, both sets of parents actually wanted to meet quite a while ago after this incident happened, and we were separated from doing that, which we didn't understand, but anyway, we decided that we would go ahead and try to figure this out ourselves. One of the parents from here reached out to one of our parents, and within maybe less than 24 hours, we were rocking. And I appreciate every one of you that came on Sunday. You actually outnumbered us, which we thought it might be the other way around. Not that that means anything, but I was so thrilled to actually be in that room and to listen to how heartfelt you guys were about this situation, because we had, as our daughters were victims of this, we had heard this, that, and the other. And to get so much of this stuff that's out there cleared up was like a breath of fresh air. I came out of that meeting like, that weight is lifted. There's a few other weights on there that are working their way off these shoulders. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you. And to those that are not kind of quite getting it yet, we are actually working together. We really do want to make change. It's not going to happen overnight. but give us an opportunity to work together. We're still going to continue to meet. We just kind of have to, logistics and stuff like that have to be worked out because there is quite a few of us. And maybe some people will be at the meeting and some may not, just because of logistics. And that was one point that was made, that everybody wasn't there to represent. It wasn't that they didn't want to be there to be represent. It's just that they couldn't make it there to represent. But they let us kind of be their voice and whatnot. And some people did speak here tonight that weren't here. And it was great to see those hugs, because we all are supportive of one another. We do want their kids to come back to school, contrary to what people might be saying, actually, because they have to come back to get their education also. I mean, our girls have suffered with their education, but we're all working on that like they are. So that's kind of good to know. But believe me, this is a process, and it will take time. And we are going to have some discussions in those meetings that might make us uncomfortable. But that's where the growth is. We may feel like, oh, did they just say that? Yeah, we did. Or they may have said something that we didn't feel comfortable with. But that's okay. Because if we don't step out of our comfort zone, there's going to never be change. So let's see the change that we need to see. And we're going to be that.
We were going to share our time, so I'll keep it brief. I am Alexandra Campbell-Jones. My daughter is Amber Jones. And she was pictured in the Instagram account in really derogatory, demeaning, hurtful, and just really stunningly racist ways. And I want to say before I address the parents, because I'm really happy to see the parents here, and thank you all for sharing. The statement was really beautiful. We had an amazing meeting on Sunday after the district dropped the ball. So the district hired seeds, and I just ask anyone who really wasn't there on the day that things got crazy, please don't talk about it, because misinformation is the last thing we need right now. So if you were not there, your child was not a part of it, I just ask that you talk to someone who was there and not spread misinformation. Anyway, the conflict mediation, quote unquote, restorative justice with the students did not really go as planned. I'll just say that. And the students who were protesting the return of the suspended students were sitting in front of the school. And there were many, many things that went wrong. The students hadn't eaten for hours. There was food brought in to the boys, but not to the girls. There were just many, many things that went wrong. And we had the opportunity as parents to speak to the SEEDS mediators after the fact, because we were all there at the school till at least 5:30 on Thursday after various emails, very disturbing things, you know, found in the trees. And I work in Richmond, so I was like really scared for my daughter that day. And I needed to leave work and make sure she was okay. So the SEEDS mediators said that it did not go as planned, it did not go as they had planned it, that usually they would meet with parents and children before putting the children together, but because the boys were coming back, they met with just the students. But what I was truly disappointed in the Albany High administration was that the mediation that was supposed to happen on Saturday, the meeting with the parents of the boys who were involved in the account and the girls who were pictured, was canceled. So I'm not sure who all are administrators, because like I said, I work in a different district, and as a teacher, you're immersed in the district you work in. And this is only the second time that I've been at a board meeting for this district, and I'm really, like everyone, so sad that it had to come to this. But I think all of us are going to be more involved as parents on many, many levels. Going to be hearing a lot more from all of us. And I appreciate you giving the time to the public comment. And I just really encourage the board to encourage the administrators at Albany High to hire a group that is more qualified to deal with this depth of content. For example, restorative justice, Oakland Youth, who I have personally worked with. They're very, very qualified. Do not drop the ball. Do not drop the process. It needs to continue. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm incredibly nervous right now. I emailed you guys, as you said you were looking for, and a couple of you were kind enough to email me back. I believe you told me to let you know if there were any events that you should be aware of, and that's why I'm here tonight, because directly after emailing you, an event happened. But I think what I'm taking from the parents who have spoken is that this is an opportunity that you are using to talk to your children about race. I don't have that luxury to just start now. I started a long time ago. I am the wife and the parent of black men. And it's hard to live in Albany and be that. I worry, my husband leaves for work at 4 in the morning, and I worry about him making it to work. And I think that we're so desensitized to racism that small events they don't mean anything, because we're so used to hearing about murders and beatings in the news, and that's sad. But I'm here because my youngest was told, he's at the elementary school, and he's super cute, just like that. And unlike what you said, they don't know about this, they're taught. They do know about it. And one of my son's classmates is in the 2nd grade, and he told my son that he had to use the dirty fountain because that was for blacks only. And he chanted to other students. They were playing a game with their lunch boxes, making a section on the table, and he was chanting "Build the Wall." And he's 7, and he knows that, and he's doing it. And I talked to the principal, and as an empathetic person, I tried to take into account that a lot of time kids don't know what they're talking about, and they repeat things. But given who this child is, and given his behavior and everything that I've heard, I think he does know it. The principal didn't suspend him. I don't know what his consequence was. I just know he wasn't suspended, and I feel uncomfortable that my kids have to go to school with people that post pictures of threats and say horrible things to my kids and make them feel that they're not worthy, because they are. And I look at my 13-year-old just the same way that you looked at all those kids up there on that video singing. I look at him like that today because he's my baby, and the world looks at him like a black man. And I have to worry about him going out into the world and being perceived as a black man, and it starts young. It starts in kindergarten, it starts in 2nd grade, it starts at home. And I want to see you do something about it, and I don't know what the answer is. I didn't come here with anything prepared. I don't even want to be up here. But I want something different, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carl Kelly. I'm the father of Cedric, the child that authored all the racist images. I let you down. I did not see this coming. I thought I set the right example, but it happened anyway. And as what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is 3 things: the consequences, what we're doing for atonement, and what we might do in the future to prevent this from happening again. The consequences is that SETI will not get any credit for this semester of school. He'll not be able to compete on the tennis team any longer. He will lose his scholarship to study abroad that would have taken him to France this summer. Since he's never had a girlfriend in high school, he'll never have a memory of a high school sweetheart. He'll have no memories of prom. Because of what he's done, he'll never be invited to a high school reunion. And he's going to have a little trouble explaining his application to the colleges that he'll try to attend later in his life. So I hope you're satisfied with the consequences. I don't know much more we could do to the boy. In addition, he's going to lose all his friends. They'll all distance himself from him. So he's really going to be all alone. The next topic is atonement. It was a great meeting on Sunday. Can't believe I escaped that meeting with my life, but here I am today. And the parents of the affected have been very gracious and very dignified. We've called them the affected, we've called them the targeted, we've called them the harmed, but really they're our finest. The grace and the dignity that they've shown through all this has been truly amazing. And man, if you know who these people are, seek them out as friends, because they're the finest people you're ever going to meet. Anyway, for atonement, I think it's, we've all been upset, inconvenienced, insulted, traumatized by this, but certainly no more than the girls who were affected. So first and foremost, we have to get closure for them. And I suggested that it would be best for all the girls to sit down with Cedric, confront him face to face, let him know what it was he did, and for him to let them know the weakness from which this mistake was born. I think that'll do it'll do a lot to help those kids get over it. As for prevention in the future, let me just explain exactly how easy this was. SETI probably did this over a period of 90 days, and he probably spent no more than an hour's worth of effort to create these images. And it turned the whole city upside down. It raced through this community like a virus, much like the flu. Well, may I suggest that the organism just doesn't have the defenses in place to deal with this? I mean, maybe we should have some sort of vaccination, and maybe we should have some sort of quarantine. And I've got two suggestions. For vaccination, may I suggest that we indoctrinate our freshmen coming into Albany High School and let them know exactly what might happen to them if they walk in SETI's footsteps. And to that end, SETI is willing to participate in a video that, don't let this happen to you, and he'll tell his story in however you want him to tell it, but certainly we'll suggest a script and try to do something that will help kids for decades to come. As far as quarantine is concerned, if you saw what happened on Sunday, your faith in this community would have increased a whole bunch, because the parents were reaching out to each other, were loving each other. Give us a chance, school board, when these things come up. On first offenders, give the parents a chance to introduce them to each other, say what the kid's been accused of, give them a chance to work it out with a time limit. And if they can't resolve it within that time limit, then it becomes your business. But if you give us a chance, we could have head this off before it became an internet storm, I think. I think I could have done it. Anyway, that's all I have to say. And once again, if you could just keep in mind the parents and the children. If you've seen that video, I'm not afraid. You got to see this thing. These kids are our finest, and they were raised by people like this gentleman right here. I'm going to turn the mic over to him. Thank you very much for listening.
God bless you. I'll tell you, first of all, just going into that room and with all the parents there encircled, we thought that we were coming in and, we've got labels now. Parents are the harmers, parents are the affected. Anyway, members of Albany community, because what we learned that, save for what their children were involved in, they would have been in the crowd with their hands raised in support of us as well. It's that slim of a margin. This definitely shows the importance for internet education, for us to understand the quote-unquote toys we're giving our kids. What I said in the meeting with some of the parents who felt, that the level of their child's involvement or the lack of 100% proof that he was involved, I just smiled and waited my turn to talk, because I said to the group, this is heavy. This is heavy. The weight of American history, the weight of American history, Albany history. If you don't know it, you need to learn it. That part of it right there is just so much. I'll say this. Today, somebody brought to my attention that 49 years ago today, April 4, Martin Luther King was assassinated. 1 year after the first African-American president has stepped down from office, the leader of the free world elected by the American people is fomenting hate, misogyny, bigotry, and any other phobia you can think of. And this is the climate we live in. Coincidental as the timing was with SETI's action, was about the time that the inauguration happened. All coincidental, relevant, we can argue about that, but that's the climate and the dust up and the bloom of this. We have to respond and heal from all of this. I had to bring to light that, to that parent, as a black man in America and knowing the history, that I have ancestors, I'm sure, who were victims of mob violence. Emmett Till supposedly whistled at a white woman and was hunted down, and they found him in a creek months later. Mob violence, to say you did something and people knock on your door. Oh no, they don't knock. They kick your door in and drag you out. Okay? I don't want to be too morbid, but you get the point. We have a small splatter of, or people get caught up in the net that they were involved in something that was, so their involvement didn't rise to a level of what they experienced. But in light of the things that we deal with even today, the black men being gunned down in the street, Black Lives Matter and all that good stuff, it's all in light of that. And that's why these kids must understand that they're not playing with toys. This is not just a JPEG that you can draw on and you can post. And you can just, well, you follow me, I'll follow you. Well, it is the hardest lesson in the world to learn. I feel for SETI and the lessons that he's going to have to learn for this. But there's accomplice to him as well. I have a hard time thinking that he was just solely a mastermind, but the accomplice to such crime, or because there's levels of hate crime, the word crime gets into it. They are accomplice to it. and should share the same fate. We can't absolve these kids of that. If they would have did some other high crime that rise to the adult world, they have to deal with that consequence. As much as we as parents want to shield our children and protect them when they do things that get outside of our sphere, well, son, there's consequences. And I can't shield you from that. But this board, this city, this administration has the power to send the message and make sure that any child, you're going to be educated, you're going to get everything you know, but if you approach this line, the third rail in the electric system, the electric power grid, there's no degrees of touching the third rail. If you touch the third rail, you will cease to exist. If any child sees that and knows that, they should be aware that that's not a place I want to go. And if we're not sending that message, and we express this, sorry for the people who have to be the example, but Lord knows, anytime a person who looked like me misstepped, it's time to make an example. Justice is blind. If the example has to be made, just think how lasting it will be. And we seek zero tolerance, that we'll never want to deal with this again. The deterrent must be there. The education must be there. We, as the adults, as we stand here in history, when we look back at this, say, yes, they did the right thing. And we don't have to deal with this sort of thing, because we teach our kids, we tell them what's right from wrong, and I let them understand the consequences. For the protection of all of us, for the protection of all our kids, to all degrees, it's necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Remember, there is a board meeting on April 25th. We would have had it sooner, but not all our board members will be in town before then. And that board meeting will be devoted entirely to this subject. And at that meeting, we want you to come with your suggestions and ideas for positive actions that we can take to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. We've heard some very good suggestions tonight, and that's just the sort of thing we're looking for. So thank you for that. We're going to go on to discuss new course adoptions, and among these courses is the Ethnic Studies course. So please stay and listen to that, and if you want to comment on ways we can improve the course from the description that's in the agenda, we would like to hear that as well.
Thank you, President Black. Trustees, I'm going to turn this over to our Assistant Superintendent, Peter Parenti, who will introduce this topic on the new course adoptions for mathematics, social studies, and applied arts.
Good evening, members of the school board, members of the public. I'm bringing to you tonight 4 new courses that Albany High School would like to offer in the 2017-2018 school year. 2 of the courses are coming from the mathematics department. They're found in Appendix A and Appendix B of tonight's board packet. These mathematics courses are the 3rd year in a series of 3 years that reflect the shift from the old California state standards to the new California Common Core standards. Math 3 and Math 3 Plus will be offered next year to all 11th graders who've completed Math 1 and Math 2. They're described for you again in the appendices A and B. The Ethnic Studies course comes from the History Social Science Department. The History Social Science Department is proud to offer this course for the first time. The teacher is here tonight, and I'm going to ask the teacher, actually we have 2 teachers here tonight, thank you for being here. Both the teacher from the Mathematics Department and the teacher from the Social Studies Department are here tonight to discuss their course. We have a 4th course, the International Cuisine course. The teacher isn't here, but I can speak briefly to that course. It is the second in a series of 2 career technical education courses. It's described in detail in Appendix D. I'd like to move quickly to allow the teachers to have as much time as possible to describe their courses and to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we start with Michelle? Thank you so much. And the Ethnic Studies course from the Social Sciences Department.
Hi, my name is
Just take the mic out of the stand and talk right into it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lausign. So ethnic studies, just to give you a background, this was inception that came last year, last school year, in terms of my motivation. As I've done research about thinking about achievement gap and culturally relevant curriculum, one of the things that has really kind of come to light in a lot of research is that looking at racial ethnic identity, there's a positive relationship for students of color and academic achievement. And so one of the things that I felt that...
You need to get even closer to the mic.
Okay. My years teaching world history and U.S. history, I realized that there's this component that's been lacking, and this is one of my motivations to bring ethnic studies to the school. So basically, I've been working with Marisol Silva. She has been greatly meeting with me throughout the whole school year as we've been going to IIC meetings to talk about this. I've been department chair also, so I've been working with the department in terms of getting input in the course outline. Basically, what the academic field of ethnic studies is just looking at power and privilege according to race and ethnicity in human society. And what I wanted to do was look at social categories like class, gender, sexuality, religion, and history, culture, current events, and everyday life, and really help give knowledge, historical knowledge, social knowledge, all the things I think is necessary for a global citizen that we want at Albany High. So I want to make sure in this course we analyze power and privilege, how it impacted different groups throughout the United States. Also to help groups look at significant contributions and look at all the different intersectionalities of different groups. And as I was putting this together, one thing I do want to acknowledge is that in the outline that I've created, the authors, we don't adhere to one textbook. We have authors of all colors, women authors to reflect a very diverse ideas. Sorry, I'm trying to think. There's a lot of things that I've written up. And objectives for this course will basically look at how, for a few of them, explain how different groups of people have historically been marked by race, ethnicity, class, gender, religion, legal status, and/or national origin in U.S. history. So one of the ways that we structured this course is not to just look at different ethnic groups throughout the school year, but besides initially looking at what is ethnic studies and looking at individuals' identity, is then kind of moving that forward using local history here in Albany as kind of a case study to move that forward for students, and then also use kind of 2 prongs, is looking at U.S. legislation from colonial period up to what is recent, and at the same time using case studies of different ethnic groups and how they were affected by legislation. And as we end kind of the second semester of this course, one thing I did want to even address is that there is a 1-month part of the unit that addresses power and privilege. And one of the things, the reason why it's important for me to put that in is that also when we look at the makeup of Albany, I think this is very important to talk about, and even to talk about understanding privilege, white privilege particularly, and how to move forward with that identity and how they can help be allies or join a movement, things like that. And towards the end of the end of the course, I also want students to assess what has changed throughout the year in terms of their identity, what they've gained from it, and what they're interested in. So at the end, they'll have a cumulative project that will either be a case study of maybe a group that wasn't covered throughout the year, to how have they grown, their identity has shifted since taking the course, and three things, sorry. Identity, and how to be an active participant of the community.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Julia.
I have a couple things. So I guess to your most recent point, I think it would be really powerful if students did the end of the year project on themselves and their own ethnicity and addressed the privilege that they may or may not have and why that exists in the society. I know in my senior composition nonfiction class, we're currently kind of doing a unit around that. So maybe talking to Miss Park, I think the unit that we've just completed has been very effective, and I think it's really caused at least myself and students in my EdSec class to really think about our privilege and, or to others maybe lack thereof, and really there was a very, I think, deep conversation in my class about privilege and whatnot. So maybe talking to Miss Park about that, because I think she did that effectively. The next thing is...
To address that, yes, they will. So at the beginning of the year, they will actually have a unit or time to identify themselves and talk about identity. And then at the end, they're coming back to that concept.
Perfect. The next thing is my English honors class last year was supposed to be focused around women's authors, and it was advertised as such. And I think maybe half, if not less, of the authors we read were women, books written by women, and it was a class advertised as U.S. history through women authors. And so I'm sure that you'll stick to your word, but please be conscientious that when you say something, follow through with it, because that is an issue that I've had with some of the courses in the past that I've taken. And the last thing is, this is general and specific, but I know a lot of this discussion has been centered around race, and nothing has been said about the anti-Semitism going on, and I understand the gravity of what happened in terms of the racist Instagram account was much deeper, but as someone who's Jewish, it's upsetting that none of this anti-Semitism has been brought up, and I brought it up and I've asked it to be brought up, and it hasn't again and again and again. So I'd really appreciate it if that was taken into account, or if you consulted members of the Jewish community or members of the Armenian community. The Armenian genocide is another huge event, Native American genocide that happened. And so I think addressing kind of the current hot button topics, but then also, I'm sure you're already doing this, but also really diving deeper to see all of the groups and how things may be different. Because I mean, for me, I'm a white female and no one knows I'm Jewish unless I tell them, unless, you can tell by the hair in the nose. But I think that I would like to have learned more about how I could handle my identity within the context of the society that I live in, because it's this weird kind of catch-22 for me. And I think that addressing that is really important, and just to the community, addressing the anti-Semitism is important and should be done.
To address both of those last two questions, so in the course outline, the readings that I do have, the excerpts, they are pretty much things that I would use for that course. So I would most likely add to it, not take away. And then secondly, part of going through this course outline too, gender, anti-Semitic ideas will also be addressed in this course.
Thanks. Ross?
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm sure if you had a second course, you could fill that one too.
Sure
And
can.
what was very encouraging is to hear the idea that students would say, pursue some area that wasn't covered in the course. And ideally, I would think the course will change over time.
Right.
The course, 3 years out, we'll have absorbed the best ideas of that which has come up from all of the students energized to talk about this. I'm a great believer in not setting something in stone, especially when there's so much to cover that you can't put it in a course.
Yes, so that was my hope. Towards the end of the course outline, there's nothing definitive at the end because I think it's important to see who is part of that population of the class and how it shifts. I mean, as a teacher, we have to see, where the learning is taking place, adjust where it's needed, and I definitely think it is important that students have an opportunity to pursue their interest. So if there's something that isn't covered, I intend to let students have choice in terms of pursuing a little more depth and knowledge.
Thanks. Kim?
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to you for putting this together. I know it's not easy to develop new course materials when you have a full teaching load anyway. So thank you very much. Also, I heard earlier from someone looking at the potential materials, resources, and assessments column of this. I didn't go so far as to look up these different authors, but I do recall someone saying that there were a lot of white men in these authors, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address that.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, there is, in terms of maybe Howard's in an excerpt from his textbook, but we have Takaki, to Suleiman, so I made sure that all our readings are representative of different groups and different genders and different ideologies.
Great, thank you. And lastly, I wanted to mention something that came up at the last board meeting. We have a local, Clementina Duran, who was mentioned at the last board meeting as being responsible for developing the ethnic studies program at Cal.
Oh, she was part of the Third World Liberation Pact.
Okay, yeah. I know that she's interested in this area. Matter of fact, she contacted me today on this area, and it might be good to get you guys together. She could be helpful.
Great. As I plan to put this course together, I also want to develop guest speakers and also include that into the course.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks. Charlie?
So thank you for giving us this update. And I think you alluded to the length of time that you've been working on the course, but maybe you could just tell us a little more explicitly how much time has gone into developing the course so far, and where does it stand in terms of the normal process of course approvals?
So it was approved by IIC in January. It has not been submitted for the UC A through G elective process because I was waiting for this approval. But let's see. I started last year. I am the department chair for social science, so I actually talked to my department members and kind of fielded out to see if there's some support in this course. And let's see, that was, I believe that was the fall of last year. And so in that process, I started to kind of dabble in what's necessary. Some of the things some of the articles I even use in my class, or in this course, is from college textbooks that I've used and tried to update those. And I seriously worked with IIC. I actually went to IIC last school year, spring, just to kind of let it be known that I'm interested in creating a course. And so over the summer, I basically did some research, looked at other schools around this area to see what kind of courses that are offered, how are they offered, and looked at some of their A through G course submissions, so I can kind of get a gamut of what it looks like in other districts locally. And then through IIC, so through the summer and to the fall, I basically attended all IIC meetings to make sure I talk with the community in terms of any concerns they might have about the course, whether it's credit recovery, to just looking at outline, to course title name. And so the fall, I started working with Marisol. We were connected in the fall, and we basically met at least once a month. In terms of, she is a graduate student at Cal in ethnic studies, so I look to her as a very knowledgeable person in the field. Yeah.
So by now you all might recognize me from the past few board meetings. So I wanted to be sure to just let you all know how it was that I got involved. On November 22nd, there was a newsletter sent out for the high school, and that was like the one newsletter I happened to read, and it announced that there was this ethnic studies class being developed, and I was so excited, so excited. So I emailed the principal right away, said, hey, this is what I do. I've been doing this for a very long time. Here's my resume. How can I help? How can I support? I would really love to make this happen. My daughter's a freshman, so I want her to be able to take this. And so we set up a time, we set up a date. I think that was November 22nd. We set up the time for December 2nd. I don't know what happened, but I was on my way to the meeting, and I called to let them know I was running just a few minutes late, and I was informed that there was no meeting on the principal's calendar. And I was quite disappointed, and I was told that if indeed there was a meeting, it would have to be canceled because the principal was busy. So I was deeply disappointed that we were unable to meet at that time. And, as a parent, I was a little bit concerned about that. Also, as a professional, I was also concerned about that. It's not uncommon for ethnic studies to be something that is underfunded, underrepresented, folks are overworked, understaffed. So it was a concern. It was a concern for me. That said, come January, I reached back out, we set up another meeting, and I also reached out directly to Michelle and said, hey, I'm not sure if this meeting's gonna happen, but either way, I just wanna let you know that I'm here, whatever I can do. I really want this to happen because I really would love to see my daughter be able to take this class. We started meeting independently, and as a result, I told her, I think we got it, and whatever you need to do with the administration, you do the administration part, I'll help you out with the content, and that's the way that we started working together. So we had these really intense, during your prep period, I believe. I'd go in, we'd meet in the lounge? In the lounge for a furious 40 minutes. I think we had one meeting on a weekend, and we've done a lot of email. So that's how I became involved. And it's really been a joy to be able to volunteer and offer whatever I can, because this is something that I believe very much in. And I would love to see Albany develop this into a really rigorous course offering for students.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this. Julia, go ahead.
Sorry, I have one more question. So I know my assumption is that this class is going to be in very high demand, and this might be a question for Mr. Anderson, might be a question for Ms. Williams, I'm not sure, but I know usually seniors get top priority for the high demand classes, and so I'm just curious, I know you want your daughter to be able to take this, she'd be a sophomore next year, so how can we allow underclassmen to take this, everyone to be prioritized, because I think this might be the most important class that is offered at Albany High, and thank you to the two of you for taking on such an incredible thing, and providing this for our students. But how can we provide this for all of our students, I guess is my question.
Well, right now it's one section and it has 18 students enrolled, and that's after the first choice by students putting in their course selection. And it's an array, it's 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, so it's a range. And as you just said, Julia, I think now, we talked about it, department chairs today, to go back out and re-advertise that it's available, and students still can make choices within their schedule to change their electives. And given what's been happening, we're pretty sure that there's going to be a renewed interest in taking the course. And we've also talked about some different ways that it might be able to be an alternative credit for world or U.S. history. But ideally it would become two sections, and that would be great. Because problem with one section is that maybe you get 40 kids, only about 30 can schedule it because they're getting conflicted out. But yeah, and it's an array, 10th, 11th, and 12th currently.
Thank you. Julia, just following on that question, this is, I think as you said, this could be the most important course taught at Albany High. In some ways, that's probably true. And as we've heard tonight, this is material that all of our students should be exposed to, but it's an elective, and not everyone will be able to take it. So I just like, this is not a direction, but I would just like staff to think about ways to incorporate more of this material into other classes, so that every student is exposed to at least the core ideas of this class. Thanks.
If I might add, I hope you don't mind. Is that okay? Yeah. Say a little bit more.
I just want to call attention, I do have another math teacher here too. I want to make sure that she gets some time to talk about her math courses within the limit that I have on this agenda item. Thank you.
I'll be quick.
Thank
Real
you.
quick. I just really want to recognize all of the efforts that Michelle has put into this. I know Michelle is department chair. She has a full teaching load. She has a personal life, sometimes, family. And, you know, it really takes a lot of dedication to make this happen. That said, I would really, really like to see from the board, from the school, more support, more resources, more training, not just for Michelle, but for all teachers to be able to start taking these things into consideration and including them in their curriculum. Because as we've seen at our very own school board meetings, these topics are difficult topics and they're uncomfortable topics. And it takes a very dedicated type of person to be able to manage those kinds of conversations productively and constructively. And so I would just really urge all of you to think about how is it that, you know, the school district can put its money where its mouth is and really support this as a, not just a one-time elective, but as something that really can be integrated and incorporated across the board K-12.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience want to comment or ask questions on this? Please.
My name's Melinda Martinez, and I am a mother of a mixed race sixth grader at AMS, brown and black. I'm also a former teacher at Albany High School, and I had the pleasure of working with Michelle. I had no idea she was going to be teaching the Ethnic Studies course, but I did come here to support the Ethnic Studies course today, and just say a little bit of a few words about some of the research on Ethnic Studies courses and why they're important. According to a recent study by Stanford in 2016, and you may know this study, it's well documented, and they looked at a couple different school districts, Coachella Valley, San Francisco Unified, and what they found was that, especially for at-risk students, that there was no other approach that had the same effect. And it had a twofold effect. One was the increased attendance, and the second was with GPA. So those are two really important things. So as far as prioritizing who should take this course, the school may want to consider including some of the McGregor kids, perhaps, that need to feel validated, empowered by their own cultural and linguistic capital. And that we will perhaps respond more positively to a culturally relevant curriculum and pedagogy. And so that said, I was at a recent meeting, and this is one of the reasons that I felt compelled to speak to you today, at the Familias Latinas meeting, and they presented some data about our brown and black students in Albany Unified, and it was really alarming. There's a huge achievement gap that has gone unaddressed, and this has happened for years now. And I applaud the district for moving forward and addressing this in this way, and especially Michelle and all of her work that she's done. And I'm just blown away that it's Michelle, who I love dearly. But the point I was making
is that everybody knows in society that we have a school-to-prison pipeline. And I would like to see Albany instead have a school to higher education illuminated pathway. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a letter that was written by Clementina Duron. I'm going to pass this out. So she was not able to make it today, but she is very familiar with the effort that is going on to make this happen. So, dear Albany School Board members, I'm writing to applaud the efforts on developing ethnic studies for the school district. It is a win-win situation. For those students that do not find reflections of themselves, their culture, history, and language in the day-to-day curriculum, this is the first and positive step in that direction. For those students whose cultures and values are the norm of the curriculum, ethnic studies gives them the opportunity to grow and learn about other students' heritage. Given the recent painful events at Albany High School and other occurrences that parents highlighted at the last board meeting, it is evident that serious, long-lasting changes must be made in the schools. Of course, there are a lot of important programs and events that principals and teachers have put in place in the schools, but obviously much more is needed. I would ask the board to establish a task force, one that also has been recommended by some of the members of the Black Parent Engagement at your last meeting. This task force would have the authority to recommend policies to the board in the areas of diversity and how to make diversity a meaningful component of the core curriculum, preschool through grade 12, as well as permeating everyday events at Albany schools. The task force would examine all the areas that make the students truly understand and appreciate each other's differences. Ethnic studies is the first important step in this process. As adults, we tend to be more insular and homogeneous with respect to who becomes part of our everyday lives. Students don't have that option in schools, and that's a positive situation. It provides children with the opportunity to interact with others that come from a myriad of cultures, experiences, and language. This surely is a win-win situation for all of our students as they become part of the global society that is our reality today. Sincerely, Clementina Duron. And I also am here in favor of the course. I think in order for us to move forward, we really have to understand each other, and we have a lot to gain and a lot to learn from one another and from our experiences. And I also think it's going to really help students to think critically, which is really important as they move forward in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, no, thank you very much. I just wanted to say, Superintendent Williams mentioned formation of a task force earlier. I'm going to just reiterate briefly what he said.
Yes, this task force is going to be created with representatives from stakeholder groups. And so I just turned this letter over to Assistant Superintendent Peter Parenti. So he has this information also. So I really want to reiterate again for the record that anybody who belongs or is part of a stakeholder group or is interested in being on the task force, please let us know, because part of this communication, conversations that we're going to be having, I really want to look at curriculum, pre-K 12. As I said, we saw our preschoolers this morning or this evening. This is something that we believe needs to be embedded throughout courses, throughout the grade levels.
Good evening. My name is Desiree Moret Blyden. I'm here just speaking as a parent, although some of you all might have seen me as part of the Black Parent Engagement Group, but I'm solely here as a parent. So I agree with Senora Duron about what she said about that and Val, you have to start early. So by the time you reach the youth in high school, it's already embedded. Also, personally, I just would like to say that I understand the importance for white privilege, but quite honestly, I don't know how much more you can beat a dead horse with that, because if you keep on reiterating it, then you're going to have children that are going to think, well, I fit the right skin type, so therefore I'm privileged. And I say this because I've heard students at Marin, my daughter and my son go there, that after they learned about slavery would actually, from the schoolyard, point and look and say, oh yeah, and my daughter was one of them. They tend to forget that I'm Joyce's mother, because I believe that we have, different skin tones, so they forget. But they were talking about my child saying, well, Joyce would definitely be working in the fields picking cotton, and we would be sitting on the porch sipping tea. So these types of things, they said it, I heard it, I didn't correct them because I thought that's not my child. But then if you just learn something in class, I thought that's really what you got from slavery, is you're sitting on the porch sipping tea while people are out there working in the fields. So little things like this, these kids are so knowledgeable in this generation to where you think you're just teaching a lesson, but I think that there's a bigger lesson that you're teaching when you quote unquote sugarcoat and or don't really bring up other items that should be addressed. And for me, it's painful to hear more. I know that at the middle school, Deborah was talking about the book with the 2 authors, and I think that that's great, but there's this notion that certain skin tones, let me say, have privilege already. So the more you emphasize that in this school district, the more you're going to have a ballooning of people's heads thinking, well, I'm the ones who fit in this category, and this may pose a problem. So again, I suggest that curriculum, through all the grades, really be fine-tuned. I'm not saying that you have to have, anything that's not age appropriate, but trying to, steer your focus, I know that you mentioned about, Jewish culture and stuff like that. Some people would actually say that the region, is going back African. So, scholars and stuff like that, if you're gonna teach it right. So I'm just saying, just don't leave out, little things like that. If you do have that in your course, great. But otherwise, you're going to have children that are going to, whatever the school misses in their curriculum, they're going to go to and watch it on YouTube. And you don't want to be relying on external sources when you could be giving the facts right here in the school. And that's what I have to say. You're welcome.
Hello. Oh, wait. How close do I have to be? All right, that's pretty close. Cool. So first, I would like to say I agree with Julie's point about yes, racism is what we've been talking about recently, right? And we should be, but also not. It's important not to let other things kind of get left behind. So, for instance, it's kind of like grades, right? So my grades are slipping in math, yeah? So I work and I work and I work and okay, and now my math is up to a B. And I look over, history. Not looking so good. So we can't let that happen with this sort of thing. So for instance, if we work really hard on making, stopping the kind of racist stuff that happens, and then we turn around and, anti-Semitism, homophobia have risen, right? That's not something we can let happen. So that's something important to consider. The other thing I was going to say is this is, after the incidents of the last couple of weeks, people were talking about, isn't this what our IHS classes are for, right? And I would say that that wasn't really addressed in IHS. The courses are all very different from what I've heard. I only had one IHS teacher, so, but what I've heard from other students have been very different classes, and the only really the three things, it's identity, health, and society, right? And the only things that, as far as I know, all classes got were identity. I think everyone did MBTI tests, Myers-Briggs type tests, which are cute, but not really particularly meaningful. For health, everyone learned to use a condom. And for society, everyone learned different advertising techniques. And maybe these are valuable things, but I think that this ethnic studies class is probably definitely more useful. Useful. There we go. Got on the mic.
Thank you, Gabe. I think that you said everything perfectly. I love your analogy about the grades because that's just very relatable. But I agree, and I think my IHS experience was exactly the same, and we weren't in the same IHS class. I mean, this was 3-4 years ago, but I think that I know you are already working really hard. You're putting in extra hours, but maybe have the IHS teachers reach out to you or work with them in some way, because I mean, I had the exact same experience in IHS. It was drugs are bad, don't do them. It was sex is bad, you know, if you're going to have it, use a condom. And it was, we learned a lot about advertising. I remember I had to analyze a song, and I still have no idea why we spent a month doing that. I remember I learned about how women are sexualized, overly sexualized in hamburger commercials, and I mean, got super riled up about feminism, but we didn't really touch on race, and we touched a lot about LGBTQ plus issues, which I think was great, but we left out a lot of stuff, and I think that it was helpful to have groups like the the Gay Straight Alliance and Peer Help come in, and there was a lot of peer-to-peer work that happened. So we had GSA and Peer Help come and do lessons for us, and I think that was really helpful. So maybe if BSU or other clubs and organizations like that would be willing to aid you guys, I think peer-to-peer education is more valuable than teacher-to-student education. So I think that they are a really, really, really great resource. I know the Jewish Student Union is bringing this up at their meeting on Thursday as well. But I just want to echo Gabe's points, and I think that the IHS curriculum, this was something that students brought to me before our last board meeting, but it's something that should be addressed, I guess, because we should be addressing more of this society, I think.
Good evening, board. My name is Francisco Lopez, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because I'm the consultant for the Latino Parents Group, and you guys approved me a couple weeks ago. So I just wanted to put a face to the name, and also to do a small report from them concerning the ethnic studies. We have talked about it frequently at our meetings, partially because Marisol is my wife and also a member, so the dual reason. But when we have discussed it in our meetings, it is overwhelmingly positive, and people keep mentioning why that we need to make this mandatory, make it more inclusive into the whole curriculum from K to 12, and much as you, as the superintendent mentioned earlier, about having that diversity talk, especially through the task force. So I did want to let you guys know that that group is fully committed to that, and will want to assist in any way we can. Especially because our group is one of the more diverse. We have people from Chile, from Mexico, from Guatemala, El Salvador, as was mentioned in another school board meeting. So we have a lot of issues in terms of just histories, and also the colorism in our own Latin American society, and misogyny, and so many complex issues. And so while most of the meeting today was about a teachable moment, I think we can have a teachable institution that can help with the diversity and the complexity that it is. And one of the boons from it is also new vocabulary. It's one of the things that really, I think, exemplifies the power of the class, and also the ideology behind it is to give voice to the voiceless, and the words to be able to express themselves. So it's not just that it's racism, it's just, it's a lot of it's hate in a lot of different ways, a lot of it's power dynamics, And so I think that's one of the other issues that we want to push and see, just like Clementina mentioned. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just to follow up on my earlier comment, my only comment was that the plurality of writers were white men, and just that, and so, for example, well, let me back up. First, I think it's great you're doing the course. Let me start with that. It looks like a great syllabus, and I have 3 small suggestions, none of which should hold up supporting this and going forward as is. The first is considering incorporating into the curriculum, if you deem it appropriate for high school students, because we do this with college students, the implicit association test on race. Okay, you thought about it. I don't know if it works for high school students or if it's too much, but that's a thought. Second, because that's an amazing tool for folks to realize their own racism, right? And it blew my mind when I took it, and I thought, oh, I'm a great liberal guy. God, I'm racist. It just turned out I had all sorts of baggage I didn't know about consciously. Second, for the Schaefer piece, consider Margaret Anderson and Patricia Hill Collins, 2 African American scholars who wrote a really great anthology called Race, Class, and Gender. I have only seen a small piece of it, and they're different chapters by different writers. The chapter I saw actually did look like it could work for high school students, but I don't know about the rest of the book, so I'm not, just a consideration.
Excuse me, can I ask you to repeat those authors again?
Oh, I'm sorry, Margaret Anderson and Patricia Hill Collins. They published a book called Race, Class, Gender, an Anthology. And I believe it is used as a first-year college text. So again, it might be too much for high school, but the chapter I read looked like it could work for high school students.
All of our students are above
Oh, okay, then there you go. So you're ready. And then an article that I used in my class at Davis that I just think is just the best summary. Race as Biology is Fiction, by Audrey Smedley and Brian Smedley. Smedley. I've used this at Davis and at Cal. It's a great summary of race as a social construct. And I've actually found it hard to find really nice articles that have meat to them to that. And so I would just throw that out there as a suggestion. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Forgive me for coming back. Sorry. Just one thing that I forgot to mention. One thing that the Latino group does do is a 5th grade to 6th grade bridge program, which started last year. A suggestion might be to integrate some kind of ethnic studies into an 8th grade to 9th grade bridge program for students either of color or school-wide to kind of help kind of bridge that gap, especially jumping from 8th to 9th grade. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask, and first of all, thank you, Marguerite Buckbauer, for your patience. We have 2 other courses that are up for the board to consider. One is Math 3 and one is Math 3 Plus. This would be an opportunity to briefly describe those courses and take any questions. Thank you.
Okay. I hope very uncontroversial. 2 new courses, Math 3 and Math 3 Plus. Math, both courses are for juniors who have completed Math 1 and Math 2. Math 3 and 3 Plus are the 3rd year of our sequence, which is a passing grade would make a student 4-year college eligible. And we've structured our math courses so that we'll get more of the kids through this instead of having them repeat, say what we used to do, Algebra 1 again and again. So our plan is to have every kid see some of these very sophisticated topics, because they are all above average. I didn't prepare anything, really. I actually thought I was going to answer questions. So you might want to know what the difference is between Math 3 and Math 3 Plus. And in a word, our Math 3 Plus, the plus is in fact the fact that the kids who have completed Math 3 Plus should be ready and able to jump into AB calculus. It will in fact take care of the pre-calculus course that we now teach. And we will still offer that, I'm sure, because the Math 3 kids have that as an option. So they will be prepared for calculus as well if they choose to when they are first year college students. So the course, I mean, we're doing, as you know, since you've listened to the descriptions of Math 1 and Math 2, we are integrated. The Math 3, looking through this, we haven't taught it yet, but when I look through the curriculum, it's very much Algebra 2. However, it has a lot of pre-cal topics, like a lot of the trig and a lot of the unit circle is, and math induction, I just looked there. We don't even teach that in pre-calculus anymore. But anyways, please ask me questions, because I think I can do that.
Yeah, I can help there. Could you say what each of the options would be after a student has completed Math 3 and Math 3 Plus? You alluded to pre-calculus, for example, but I think there's more options for each of those two.
There are a few more, yes. So a student who has completed Math 3, so far, now we only have 3 options so far, but I suspect down the road we're going to have more, because it'll just be more appropriate. For example, we have a regular stat course for a senior who has completed Math 3 to take. But honestly, the stat that we cover in Math 1, 2, and 3 is about what we cover in that course. So it really shouldn't be necessary. It won't advance the ball for that particular student. That student should then perhaps take our AP statistics course. And then, of course, pre-calculus. That's what we have for right now. I envision down the road, as I said, there could be some interesting other math classes that we could develop.
The prerequisite for 3 plus is listed as 2 plus, but there is a path from 2 to 3 plus.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
What could you describe what that is?
Well, it's basically teacher recommendation. If you have a sharp student, a kid who is who has the desire to go a little faster and a little deeper, we will speak to the kid, or the kid can speak to us, and we can say, oh yeah, give it a try. I mean, really, if a kid really wants to try, it's so different from what we used to have in all these placement tests. And
So what supports are in place to bring them up to speed?
well, that's, I don't know if we have any supports. It would be nice if we had supports for more of our lower end kids who will be having some issues with this Math 1, Math 2, Math 3. And the supports are the same supports that we've always had, which is the teacher and advisory and after school and lunchtime and whatever we have flex tutoring, that might be in place as well for a kid to get up to speed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
I would add to that, online, my daughter's using Khan Academy. There's other sorts of resources, and it's not for tonight since we're way past our time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be interested in hearing about impact of technology on all sorts of academics, but in particular math and sciences, because I think the availability of online resources is just growing.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, there is that. There's that. And we're using a lot more technology in our courses than what we used to do as well.
Kim?
Yes, my son is in 10th grade, and so he's a member of this class that's been having these new courses every year.
Yep, he gets another.
Yeah, and here another. I just wanted to ask you if you think that the adoption of the new math curriculum in the previous years is going to make the adoption of 3 and 3+ easier for the teachers in the department and also for the kids.
I hope so. I hope so. It felt better, you know. I taught freshmen the Math 1. It happened to be a Math 1 plus, but still, it was a big adjustment for all of us. And the Math 2 adjustments seemed to be less. The kids came in, they knew how to work in groups. They were used to, oh, okay, we got to read the situation now. You're not going to just tell us how to do things. So I bet 3 will be a lot easier.
Good. Can you also comment on the quality of learning in the new courses? I mean, it seemed like I attended a few board meetings back when where this curriculum change was discussed, and how the teachers feel about this new learning. I'd be interested to hear.
I don't want to speak for all of the teachers. I think we all have our ups and downs. You know, it's not perfect. The old system wasn't perfect either. We had our moments where we were very frustrated with, you know, I thought I taught that just fine, and then, you know, I still had half the class with D's. So it's not perfect. We're working on it. I think I personally will get better as I move along. I'm not there yet. I'm not the perfect facilitator for this kind of learning, because I jump in way too often and say, wait, let me help you, and I tell them how to do things. And I don't allow them to work it out like I should. And I know we're all at that stage. I think we'll all get better, which won't help your son, because he gets to see us bumbling a little bit. But I think the curriculum is very solid. It really is. And I think we will be popping out, instead of good memorizers, some good problem solvers. And that's the goal, because the memory is gone, but the problem solving should stick. They should be able to take that to any situation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Marguerite. We have, actually the meeting was scheduled to end at 9:15. We're already at 9:30. We have 4 more agenda items. So I'm going to suggest that we take item 3, the guidelines to establish school enrollment capacity, and move that to a future meeting. We have 1 more course to discuss. And we have the board policy and administrative regulation, protection for undocumented students. I'm hoping we can get through that in a little less than 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask the board if you want to extend the meeting till 10 o'clock, and we'll try to be out of here by 10.
So address the 2 review and action items.
Those have to be addressed. Is that all right?
I'll move that we extend the meeting until 10 o'clock.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, does anyone need a break before we jump into this? Let's take a quick 4.5-minute break.
I pulled it up as a new appointment in Oakland, so it's an Oakland thing, but.
Actually, my wife is going to Washington at the end of the month.
Oh, that's Sorry, late coach. Short story in trouble. The school board meeting. His first time in state, $500 a night hotel. You can do it. I posted this to Facebook and they said it's the point when you realize your life is not as exciting as in the comic.
People's climate. People's climate. People's climate.
And they're always talking about Stanford medicine doctors, which is supposed to be Stanford medicine doctors, but they always say Stanford medicine doctors.
I hear that I play medicine. Tribal.
I think they should say medical doctors.
But that's not what they do. Stanford medicine.
Okay, we're all back. We have one more course to discuss. We're all back except Peter. Okay, so the remaining course is international cuisine, is that right? I've been in the IIC meetings where this was discussed, so I'll just give what I know about it. We have had for quite a while one class in, what's it officially called? It's a cooking class.
Culinary arts.
Culinary arts. We've had one culinary arts class. It's career technical education. This would make a second class, and with a two-class sequence, then it kind of officially becomes career technical education. The content of this class is, if you read the, what's in the agenda packet, it covers a large part of the world, but beyond just teaching food from all these different parts of the world, the culture of the areas that the food comes from is covered in some detail. So there's quite a bit of ethnic and cultural content in this, plus it just sounds delicious. Peter, did you want to add anything to that?
Absolutely, actually. Structurally, this represents our first career technical education pathway. Someday in the near future, when we get to the board item we prepared for the board meeting a couple weeks ago, we're going to talk about how career technical education pathways, which are defined as 2 years of an ROP situated course, will help students become college and career ready. This is going to be our first one. So students in the prerequisite course, which is just cuisine, coming into this next course, are going to earn some pretty substantial credits in that regard.
Great. Do we have any comments or questions on this? Charlie?
Well, I just wanted to add that I was impressed by the cultural component. This looked like a rigorous course, and particularly with such topics as the role of New World foods in feeding the world population, it looked very interesting.
Thanks. Okay, so Julia?
I know a lot of people have been talking about teacher training for the issues that have been going on lately, so I just want to make sure that the teacher teaching this class hopefully receives the same training as maybe the teacher who is teaching the ethnic studies class, just so there can be kind of a liaison or connection. The students don't necessarily need to take both classes, but because they're talking about cultures that they may not be a part of, kind of that same sensitivity and ability to discuss things. So maybe another thing in Miss Lau's area of expertise, but just some way for the teacher teaching that class to really be trained to make sure that they encompass all the cultures.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to suggest, if nobody on the board objects, that all these courses be brought back in the consent calendar so that we can officially approve them.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay, and this brings us to, I believe, are we up to?
Yes.
Yes. Board policy and administrative regulation. This is the first reading. We don't approve it tonight, but it's the first time we're looking at it. Protection for undocumented students.
Thank you. School board, at the February 14th meeting, the school board passed a resolution making Albany Unified a safe haven school district. The board directed staff to create board policy and administrative regulations. I reached out to the American Civil Liberties Union, and they provided me with a template or a draft of board policy. So I took that draft and worked on sort of a new board policy administrative regulations, and then met with two members of the Albany Community Action Group, Sasha Keller and Sarah Hinckley. And they came in, reviewed both the document, the templates from the ACLU, as well as the draft that we have. And so I'm going to turn this over to Marie Williams, who will take us through it. The changes that you see in the document were actually when we vetted it with legal counsel, and I wanted to make sure we tracked those changes so that Sarah and Sasha could see what the recommended changes from legal are. So I'm going to turn it over to Marie Williams.
Good evening. I actually don't have anything else to say. Val took all my lines. But I wanted just to remind you, as Val did, of how we arrived here in terms of adopting, reviewing, discussing, and then potentially adopting these courses, and give you the remainder of the time to discuss and ask any questions that you have, so that we can bring bring the board policy back for potential approval, and then get your confirmation on the admin regulation.
And I will track the changes while the board is making its recommendations.
Okay. So I've got a few things, but start with anyone else? No? Oh, gee. Okay, well, on page 139, in the background information, yes. It's not, we haven't started either one. It's page 139. It's in the key questions and answers. It says AUSD Administrative Regulation 5111.1 states that the superintendent or designee shall annually verify the student's residency and retain a copy of the documents offered as verification. I just wanted to be sure that we amended that so that we're not retaining copies of birth certificates or passports or other documents that could be used by INS to establish that the student was not a citizen. So we can check them, make sure that they're residents, but not retain that document. Is that okay?
So
Ross?
the purpose of retaining, is retain the documents offered as verification. Is that just so that 6 months out when we say, well, I mean, once we've determined for that school year they have residency,
And we just want to have a record that we checked it.
well, we could basically write it attestation. We checked it. And,
Exactly,
And
that's
none of
what-
those records need to be retained.
Exactly, that's what we'll do. Okay. Okay, I had a few basically typos, and one thing I asked for in all our board policy, I don't remember ever seeing footnotes. So I would just like to take the footnotes out and make them in line. It's actually easier to read when they're footnotes, but it's not consistent with the rest of our policy. Yeah, the other things were were pretty much just typos and slight grammatical corrections. So I think you have a record of those. I mean, I emailed them to you.
Yes, we do. We can make the changes, and if the board would like, because the administrative regulations don't get approved officially, I can bring the board policy back on consent if you would like at the next board meeting, and we can attach the administrative regulations there also so you can see them.
Okay, the only other thing that might be substantive people might want to comment on. Right at the end of the administrative regulation, page 150, this kind of thing kind of bothers me when I read them in ARs. It says, within 90 working days of the school board's approval of these administrative regulations, 5 years from now when somebody's reading that, it just will look silly. So I suggest just starting with the superintendent shall develop a plan and we'll trust that she'll do it in 90 days, if that's okay.
Because it's a reference to a one-time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One-time event. The other one is at the end of that same paragraph says the superintendent shall create in-language versions of the plan. So we have something like 40 languages spoken in the district, so I was suggesting that we just list the languages that we're going to translate it into, which will be the majority languages in the district. I don't think we can probably afford to translate it into all the languages. That's okay? We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two resolutions. No, we have a resolution and a waiver request.
Yes, this is a resolution 2016-1718, reduction of classified services. Yearly, we bring to the district any classified positions that need to be reduced due to lack of work or lack of funds. And these that are in this agenda item are categorically funded positions. The employees are placed on the 39-month rehire list, and should there be funds or work to return, the employees are contacted to return to work in order of seniority.
Can you explain what you mean by categorically?
Yes, much of these, so categorical funds are restricted funds. They're one-time funds, usually that can't be counted on for a future year. Many of the positions noted on the resolution are from donated funding sources.
So when the funds are donated, the donation letter stipulates what they shall be spent on.
Correct.
And so we're depending on our fundraisers to raise the money again next year, then we will hire these people back.
Correct.
Any comments or questions from the board? We need a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
We have a second.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. And we have a variable term waiver request.
Yes, the variable term waiver request is something that the Commission on Teacher Credentialing issues. It allows the employer the ability to assign persons who are not credentialed for their assignment. Usually it's because there's an insufficient number of certificated persons who meet the criteria. So we have an unfilled vacancy in our counseling department at Albany Middle School. As you know, spring is a very critical time for counseling services. So the district followed the process of posting, recruiting, interviewing, and they identified the most qualified candidate, which is Morgan Koblik, I believe is her name. And she has been a counselor intern at Albany High School. And so she does expect to complete her California credential program this spring. So we are asking the board to approve the variable waiver for her so she can be the counselor at Albany Middle School.
Okay, I just had one question about this. The waiver form was included, but it's not filled in. So what exactly are we approving?
Right, you are approving the form. The reason it's not that it's not filled in is that the personal information is withheld on this document because it's personal identifiable information for the person. So the real document has her name.
Okay, so is the real document available for inspection by board members?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. However, if we approve it tonight, you'll have to approve it before you've seen it. If that's okay with everybody, can we have a motion to approve this?
I would move we approve the waiver.
We have a second.
Sure, I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Julie's going to say aye. Thank you. That brings us to agenda items, matters introduced by the board. Do we have any new agenda items?
None that were brought tonight. I think the board expressed a desire at the April 25th board meeting that staff bring relevant policies around bullying and harassment, and to make sure that we're in alignment with our policies and practices. It is my desire, even though we have spring break and there's that week off, that we will at least be able to begin the community conversations, and we'll be able to bring some sort of an update to the board as part of that staff report.
Great, thanks. Does anyone on the board want to suggest agenda item?
Yeah, just as a follow-up to what Val offered, I just wanted to inform the board that since the crisis broke, I'll use that language, I've been receiving, and I'm pretty much the clearinghouse for all emails and all outreach and all offers of services that have so far come into the district. Whenever any of the staff in the district office receive any information, they're forwarding it to me, and I've got at least 40. And in reviewing a cursory review, I'm noticing that there's a range in quality and/or reliability and/or credibility from a variety of these organizations. So it's going to take me at least that spring break to vet some of these. Some of them are very well-intentioned and excellent, I believe. Others might not be so good for our district. It's just going to take a long time for us to get through.
Well,
all
good.
of those
It's
items.
important we get it right. We've seen what happens when we
I
don't.
just think we're coupled here with a sense of urgency, and then we have to temper ourselves with a sense of responsibility.
Yes.
And that's going to take the time. So I'm not going to call up every vendor that called me and tell them to come on down for a sales pitch.
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for doing all that work. Julia?
So in discussing kind of what's happened recently with a lot of my peers, something that was brought up and that could be a potential maybe shorter agenda item for the 25th meeting is, and this students offered to do the report. I know I talked to you, Ms. Williams, briefly about this. I haven't sent the official email request yet. But basically a social media presentation kind of. I know kind of meme culture might be a catchphrase that has been thrown around a lot with this, that the students that created these racist images were trying to make memes, and you probably have no idea what a meme is. So students were interested in coming and presenting a little bit about what potentially influenced these images to be created in the first place, and kind of how we've become so desensitized because of this new meme culture that has happened. And so I think that might be an interesting agenda item, especially for all of you. I mean, I know that we've had a lot of discussions about social media and better ways to connect with students in the community, and I think this would be a great way to educate the board and more adult community members on kind of what we're exposed to. So I'd call it a social media literacy presentation, and I can send you the details of the students that would be interested in presenting that specifically. Yeah.
How long do you think it would take?
I mean, it could be a 10-minute, it could be a 5-minute presentation, but I think it's just, I mean, I'd say 15 minutes would be my recommendation so that students have time to fully flesh out, to fully include a slideshow and whatnot, but we could limit it down, but I think it's important that it happens.
Ross?
Yeah, and I would suggest maybe you talk to Dax about that, because this topic came up at our tech committee meeting this week, where the question is, you know, are teachers well aware of what's happening in social media to even recognize something going by?
Right.
So when the students are talking about this, that, and the other, and it's alien to the teacher, because, you know, so as I've evolved to use Facebook, my daughter has gotten the heck out of there, because that's where adults are now, and they're somewhere else. This is Dax, the district office tech director, and there's an interest in getting that sort of education as professional development to teachers. So he would be able to, I think, introduce you to the staff who are most interested in this, and collaborate on that.
That's great. So was that a second, Russ?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for the suggestion.
And then another one students wanted was a report on the anti-Semitism that's been going on. I didn't see that.
That will be included, yeah. And by the way, the reason you spent all that time on advertising in IHS was so that you could learn to distinguish between an ad and real news. And if you don't think it's important, look at who got elected and how.
I think it's important, but I think the way it was taught was not.
That I can't attest to.
Yeah.
But that was the intent behind it.
Yeah.
Paul, I just, in our revised agenda for tonight, it lists 3 upcoming board meetings, and I just wanted to touch base here. So it lists April 18th as being at the community center. It lists April 25th as being at Albany City Hall. I do believe I'm looking at the revised agenda. Please.
Yes, and that's wrong.
Yeah, it says
25th
revised at the
should be
top.
at the Little Theater.
Yes, so the April 25th meeting is at the Little Theater. The April 18th board meeting is at Albany City Hall.
Oh, it's not at the community center?
No, it's at Albany City Hall.
Because that's not
Okay.
a regular board night, so I thought it was at the community
We
Ms. Benavides?
revised the list again, and I can pull it up and put it up here for you.
center. The 25th would have been the regular board meeting night?
The 25th was a regular meeting. The 18th was supposed to be a special meeting just for the governance handbook.
Right. And so that's, I think, why it was at City Hall, it was an extra meeting.
Right, then it was changed again.
Right,
So I'm not sure we have.
Do we have City Hall on the 18th?
We have City Hall on the 18th from 7 to 9:30, and we have the Little Theater on the 25th from 7 to 9:30. And that's posted on the website, on the calendar, and on a revised agenda on the website.
Okay, so we do have City Hall for the 18th.
18th,
And
yes.
the April 18th is not, it doesn't have a single agenda item for just the student board member
No.
on the governance handbook. It also includes the items, some of the items that we did not get to last time, and then, of course, we just moved one additional item.
Right, but this does say additional regular meeting, which is fine.
May I ask that we double check the 18th? That is a third Tuesday, not a second or a fourth Tuesday. And so whether we actually have City Hall available to us on third Tuesdays?
We have it.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
That's why it was listed.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to be sure I show up at the right place.
With that, we're adjourned.